The night before her wedding, Maureen Jonas walked into a hotel suite expecting roses and romance. Instead, she found her fiancé in bed with another woman. One betrayal. One stranger in a bar. One night that changed everything. But when morning came, she discovered the man who held her through her darkest hour was her fiancé's brother, a dangerous mafia boss with secrets that could destroy them all. Now she's caught between two brothers, torn between the life she planned and a love she never saw coming. Will she choose safety or surrender to the most dangerous man she's ever met? Keep watching to find out. The hotel suite door wasn't locked. That should have been Maureen's first warning, but she was too excited, too eager to surprise Gyra on the night before their wedding. She had spent the entire day handling last-minute details, confirming with the florist, checking on the cake, making sure everything was perfect for tomorrow. Now, with a bottle of champagne in one hand and a gift box in the other, she pushed open the door with her hip, a smile already forming on her lips. The smile died instantly. The champagne bottle slipped from her fingers and shattered against the marble floor, the sound impossibly loud in the sudden, suffocating silence. But Maureen barely heard it. All she could see was the tangle of bodies in the bed, the white sheets twisted around naked limbs, her fiancé's face frozen in shock as he looked up at her. "Maureen!" Gyra gasped, scrambling to pull the sheet over himself and the woman beside him. "Baby, this isn't what it looks like." The woman, a redhead Maureen had never seen before, had the decency to look ashamed. She grabbed her clothes from the floor and rushed past Maureen without meeting her eyes, leaving a trail of perfume that made Maureen's stomach turn. "Maureen, please." Gyra stood up, wrapping the sheet around his waist. "Let me explain." She couldn't speak. Her throat had closed up, her chest so tight she thought her ribs might crack from the pressure. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times in other women's stories, always thinking she would rage, scream, throw things. But now that it was happening to her, she felt nothing but a hollow, expanding emptiness. "It's the stress," Gyra continued, moving toward her with his hands outstretched like she was a spooked animal. "The wedding, the family pressure, everything. I made a mistake." "One mistake, Maureen? Don't let one mistake ruin everything we've built." Finally, she found her voice. "How long?" "What? How long has this been going on?" Gyra's face shifted, and she saw the calculation in his eyes, the lies forming on his tongue. "It was just tonight. I swear to you, it was just tonight. I was nervous about tomorrow, and she was at the bar, and I had too much to drink and—" "Stop." The word came out quiet but sharp enough to cut. "Just stop." She turned and walked out of the suite, her heels crunching over broken glass and spilled champagne. Behind her, Gyra called her name again and again, his voice rising in panic, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. If she stopped, she might shatter just like that bottle, and she refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. The elevator ride down felt like drowning. Maureen stared at her reflection in the polished doors, at the woman in the blue dress who had been so happy an hour ago, so certain of her future. The diamond on her finger caught the light, and she wanted to rip it off and throw it away, but her hands wouldn't cooperate. They just hung at her sides, numb and useless. Outside, the New York night air hit her like a slap. It was October, cold enough to make her shiver in her thin dress, but she welcomed the physical discomfort. It gave her something to feel besides the gaping wound in her chest. She walked without direction, letting her feet carry her away from the hotel, away from the venue where tomorrow's ceremony was supposed to happen, away from everything. She passed couples holding hands, groups of friends laughing, people living their normal Friday night lives while hers imploded. After 20 minutes of aimless wandering, she found herself in front of a bar. It was the kind of place she would normally never enter, dimly lit with a neon sign that flickered like a dying heartbeat. But normal Maureen had died in that hotel suite. This new version of herself pushed open the door and walked inside. The bar was half empty, filled with the kind of people who had their own demons to drown. Maureen slid onto a stool at the far end and caught the bartender's attention. "What can I get you?" he asked. "I don't know," she admitted. "I've never done this before." He raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. "Rough night?" "You could say that." "Then you want something strong. Whiskey?" She nodded, though she had no idea if that was what she wanted. When the glass appeared in front of her, she stared at it for a long moment before lifting it to her lips. The liquid burned going down, making her cough, but she took another sip anyway. Then another. "Slow down," a voice said from beside her. "Or you'll regret it in the morning." Maureen turned to find a man sitting 2 stools away. He was Korean, older than Gyra by maybe 5 or 6 years, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to see too much. He wore an expensive suit that looked out of place in this dive bar, and there was something about the way he carried himself that suggested danger. "Maybe I want to regret it," Maureen said, surprised by the bitterness in her own voice. The man studied her for a moment, then gestured to the bartender. "2 waters. And cut her off after the next drink." "I don't need you to take care of me," Maureen snapped. "No," he agreed. "But you're about to make decisions you'll hate yourself for tomorrow. Trust me, I know what that looks like." There was something in his tone that made her pause. He wasn't being condescending or trying to pick her up. He sounded tired, like someone who had been exactly where she was now. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Same as you. Trying to forget." "Forget what?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Everything." They sat in silence for a while, both nursing their drinks. The water arrived, and Maureen found herself drinking it, grateful despite her earlier protest. "Do you want to talk about it?" the man asked eventually. "Not really." She twisted the ring on her finger, and his eyes followed the movement. "You're getting married?" "I was supposed to be," she corrected. "Tomorrow morning. Big white dress, 300 guests, the whole fairy tale." "What happened?" The question opened something inside her, and suddenly the words were pouring out. She told him everything. Finding Gyra with another woman, the excuses, the lies she could see forming in his eyes. She told him about the 2 years they'd been together, how charming he'd been, how he'd swept her off her feet with grand gestures and promises of forever. "He made me feel like I was the only woman in the world," Maureen said, her voice breaking. "How stupid am I?" "You're not stupid," the man said firmly. "He's a liar. There's a difference." "I should have seen it. There must have been signs." "Maybe. Or maybe he was just good at hiding who he really was." He paused. "Some people are excellent liars. They practice until the mask becomes their face." Something in the way he said it made Maureen look at him more closely. "You sound like you know from experience." "I do. Just not in the way you think." He extended his hand. "I'm Jean." "Maureen." She shook his hand, noting the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip. "What do you do, Jean?" "Business," he said vaguely. "Import, export, that sort of thing." It was clearly a deflection, but Maureen didn't push. She was too tired, too raw to care about a stranger's secrets when her own life was falling apart. They talked for hours. About betrayal, about trust, about the moment when you realized the person you loved never really existed. Jean didn't offer empty comfort or tell her things would be okay. Instead, he listened, really listened, in a way that made her feel seen for the first time all night. "My brother once told me that love was weakness," Jean said at one point. "I thought he was wrong. Now I'm not so sure." "Your brother sounds cynical." "He's practical. There's a difference." Jean finished his drink. "But maybe practical is better than whatever this is." Maureen looked down at her empty glass. The alcohol had dulled the sharp edges of her pain, but it was still there, pulsing like an open wound. "I don't want to go home," Where's home? An apartment I share with my best friend. But she's going to want to talk about it, and I can't. Not yet. I just need space, Seo-jin finished. I understand. He pulled out his phone and made a call in Korean, his voice low and commanding. When he hung up, he turned back to her. I have a hotel room nearby. You can have it for the night. I'll get another one. I don't even know you. No, he agreed. But you know your fiancé, and look where that got you. It was a fair point, and Maureen found herself nodding. Okay. Thank you. The hotel was nothing like the one where she'd found Gyra. This was luxury on a different level, all marble and gold and discretion. Seo-jin spoke to the front desk in rapid Korean, and suddenly they were being escorted to a suite that probably cost more per night than Maureen's monthly rent. I'll be down the hall, Seo-jin said, handing her a key card. If you need anything. But as he turned to leave, Maureen caught his arm. Stay. He froze. That's not a good idea. I know. But I don't want to be alone right now, and you're the only person who doesn't make me feel like I'm breaking into 1,000 pieces. Seo-jin's jaw tightened, and for a moment she thought he would refuse. Then he nodded once, sharp and decisive, and stepped inside. They didn't touch. That was important somehow, in Maureen's alcohol-fuzzy mind. They sat on opposite ends of the couch and kept talking, about everything and nothing. She learned that he was the oldest of 2 brothers, that he'd grown up in Korea but moved to New York for business, that he loved classical music and hated small talk. What about you? He asked. Besides the disaster of a fiancé. I'm a teacher, Maureen said. 4th grade. I know, not very exciting. Teaching is one of the most important jobs there is. That's what I tell myself when the pay is terrible and the parents are worse. She smiled despite everything. But the kids make it worth it. They're honest in a way adults forgot how to be. Honest, Seo-jin repeated. That's a rare quality. Is that why you're in this bar tonight? Someone wasn't honest with you? His expression shuddered. Something like that. They fell into comfortable silence, and Maureen felt her eyelids growing heavy. The couch was soft, and Seo-jin's presence was oddly comforting, like a shield between her and the world outside. You should sleep, Seo-jin said softly. Tomorrow's going to be hard enough. Tomorrow, Maureen echoed. The wedding that wouldn't happen. The guests who would show up to an empty venue. The humiliation of explaining what happened. She felt tears prick her eyes. I don't know how to face tomorrow. 1 minute at a time, Seo-jin said. That's all you can do. She must have fallen asleep because the next thing she knew, soft morning light was filtering through the curtains. Maureen blinked, disoriented, and realized she was in the bed, covered with a blanket. Seo-jin sat in the armchair across the room, his eyes closed, his suit jacket draped over the back of the chair. For a moment she just watched him. In sleep, he looked younger, less guarded. There was something beautiful about the sharp lines of his face, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead. Then his eyes opened, and their gazes locked. Morning, he said quietly. You stayed. You asked me to. Maureen sat up, suddenly aware of how she must look, her makeup smeared, her dress wrinkled. Thank you. For last night. For listening. You don't need to thank me. Seo-jin stood, grabbing his jacket. I should go. Wait. She didn't know why she said it, only that she wasn't ready for this strange connection to end. What's your number? In case I need someone to talk to. He hesitated, and she saw the war playing out behind his eyes. Finally, he pulled out a business card and handed it to her. Don't use it unless you really need to. Before she could ask what that meant, he was gone. Maureen looked down at the card. Just a name and a number, nothing else. She tucked it into her purse and stood, catching sight of herself in the mirror. The woman staring back at her was a stranger, all red eyes and tear-stained cheeks. Her phone buzzed. 17 missed calls from Gyra. 23 text messages. Voicemails filling up her inbox. She deleted them all without listening. Then she called Ravel. "Oh my God, where have you been?" Her best friend's voice was frantic. "Gyra's been calling me. Your mom's been calling me. Everyone's freaking out." "What happened?" "I need you to cancel the wedding," Maureen said flatly. Silence. Then, "What?" "Cancel it. Tell everyone it's off. I'll explain later, but right now, I need you to make sure no one shows up to that venue." "Maureen, talk to me. What's going on?" "I caught him cheating. Last night, in our hotel suite. With another woman." Ravel's sharp intake of breath was followed by a string of curses that would have made a sailor blush. "That piece of trash. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to actually murder him." Despite everything, Maureen almost smiled. "Get in line." "Where are you?" "I'm coming to get you." Maureen gave her the hotel address and hung up. Then she sat on the edge of the bed and let herself cry, really cry, for the first time since walking into that suite. She cried for the future she'd lost, for the man she thought she loved, for the naive woman she'd been 24 hours ago. By the time Ravel burst through the door, Maureen had cried herself empty. "Oh, honey." Ravel wrapped her in a fierce hug. "I'm so sorry." "I'm okay," Maureen said, and was surprised to find it was almost true. She wasn't okay, but she would be. Eventually. "Did you stay here alone?" Maureen thought about Seojin, about the way he'd sat with her all night without asking for anything in return. "No. I had a friend." "What friend?" "Girl, you better start explaining." But as Maureen opened her mouth to tell the story, her phone rang. Gyra's name flashed on the screen. "Don't answer it," Ravel said. "I have to. Just to tell him it's over." She picked up, and Gyra's voice came through, desperate and pleading. "Maureen, thank God. Where are you? We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about. Please, baby. Come to my mother's house. The family's here. We can work this out together." "Your family?" Maureen's stomach dropped. "Why are they there?" "Because it's the day before the wedding. They flew in yesterday, remember? My brother just got here this morning." "Brother." The word echoed in Maureen's mind. "What's your brother's name, Gyra?" "What? Why does that matter?" "Just tell me." "Seojin. His name is Seojin." "Why?" The phone slipped from Maureen's hand. No. It couldn't be. The man from the bar, the man who'd held her while she broke down, who'd stayed with her all night, couldn't be Gyra's brother. But she knew it was true even before Ravel picked up the phone and asked Gyra for his mother's address. The business card in her purse felt like it was burning through the leather. "Maureen?" Ravel's face was full of concern. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I need to go to that address," Maureen said numbly. "To Gyra's mother's house? Are you insane?" "I need to see something. Please, Ravel. Just take me there." The drive across the city felt like a death march. Maureen clutched her purse in her lap, the business card inside like a ticking bomb. She kept telling herself she was wrong, that it was a coincidence, that there must be dozens of Korean men named Seojin in New York. But she knew better. The Kwon family home was a mansion in the Upper East Side, all old money and intimidation. Ravel parked across the street, and they both stared at the imposing facade. "Last chance to change your mind," Ravel said. Maureen shook her head and got out of the car. She rang the doorbell, and a housekeeper answered, ushering them into a formal living room where Gyra paced like a caged animal. When he saw Maureen, his face lit up with relief. "Thank God. I was so worried." He moved toward her, but she stepped back. "Don't. Maureen, please." Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. We're done. You don't mean that. Gyra's voice took on a wheedling tone. You're upset, I get it. But think about everything we have together. Think about what we're throwing away. You threw it away the moment you got into bed with someone else. A door opened behind them, and a voice said, Gyra, Mother wants to know if... Seojin stopped mid-sentence. His eyes went to Maureen, then to the ring on her finger, then back to Gyra. The color drained from his face. You, Maureen breathed. Gyra looked between them, confused. You two know each other? No, Seojin said quickly. Too quickly. But Maureen was done with lies. He was at the bar last night. After I caught you. We spent the night together. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Gyra's face went from confused to furious in the space of a heartbeat. You what? We talked, Maureen clarified, though her cheeks burned. That's all. But I didn't know who he was. And I didn't know who she was, Seojin added, his voice carefully controlled. If I had known she was your fiancé. But you didn't care enough to ask. Gyra's laugh was ugly. My brother. My own brother. Don't, Seojin said, and there was warning in his voice. Don't make this about something it wasn't. Then what was it about, Hyung? Comforting my bride the night before our wedding? A woman who needed help. That's all I saw. Maureen felt sick. The connection she'd felt last night, the comfort and understanding, had been built on a lie of omission. I need to leave. But before she could move, an older Korean woman appeared in the doorway. She was beautiful in a cold, severe way, and the family resemblance to both brothers was unmistakable. What is all this noise? Yunseo Kwan's voice could have frozen fire. Gyra immediately switched to Korean, speaking rapidly. His mother's eyes sharpened as she looked at Maureen, then at Seojin. English, Seojin said flatly. She deserves to understand what's being said about her. Yunseo's lips thinned, but she switched languages. So you're the bride who's causing such trouble. I'm not causing trouble, Maureen said, finding her spine. Your son cheated on me the night before our wedding. So I've heard. These things happen. Men have needs. Maureen stared at her in disbelief. Excuse me? What I mean is, marriages survive these little indiscretions all the time. You're being very dramatic about something quite common. Little indiscretions? Maureen's voice rose. He was in bed with another woman in the suite we were supposed to share after our wedding. That's not little. Nevertheless, canceling a wedding over this seems extreme. Yunseo settled onto a chair like a queen on a throne. Do you have any idea how much money has been spent? How many important people are expecting to attend? The embarrassment this will cause our family? That's what you're worried about. Embarrassment? I'm worried about my son's future, Yunseo said coldly. And about a girl who seems to have made quite an impression on both my boys in the span of a single night. Maureen's stomach turned. It wasn't like that. Wasn't it? Yunseo's smile was sharp. My eldest son, who never involves himself in anyone's problems, just happened to spend the night with his brother's bride. How coincidental. Mother. Seojin's voice was dangerous. Stop. Why? Someone needs to say what everyone's thinking. She turned back to Maureen. If you wanted attention, my dear, you've certainly gotten it. But don't expect me to believe this innocent act. Ravel stepped forward. Okay, we're done here. Maureen, let's go. But Maureen was frozen, Yunseo's words cutting deeper than they should. Because wasn't there a part of her that had felt something last night? Something she shouldn't have felt with a stranger, especially on the night her engagement ended? I'm sorry, she said, though she wasn't sure who she was apologizing to. Then she turned and walked out, Ravel close behind. They were halfway down the front steps when Seojin caught up to them. Maureen, wait. She spun around. Wait for what? For you to explain how this is all some huge misunderstanding? I trusted you. I told you things I haven't told anyone. I know. And the whole time, you were his brother. I didn't know that until 5 minutes ago. Seojin ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident on his face. You think I would have stayed if I'd known? You think I wanted this? I don't know what you wanted. I don't know anything anymore. I wanted to help someone who was hurting. That's all. And yes, I felt a connection with you, and yes, that was wrong given the circumstances, but I didn't plan any of this. Neither did I, Maureen said quietly. But here we are. They stood there in the morning sunlight, the space between them filled with impossible complications. Finally, Seojin pulled out his phone. Delete my number. Forget last night happened. It's better for everyone. Is it? He looked at her, and for a moment, his careful control slipped. No. But it's necessary. Then he turned and walked back into the house, leaving Maureen standing on the steps with her heart in pieces for the second time in 24 hours. The next few days passed in a blur of cancelled plans and awkward explanations. The venue was dealt with, the guests notified, the gifts returned. Maureen's mother flew in from Atlanta and spent 3 days trying to convince her to give Gyra another chance. Everyone makes mistakes, she said over breakfast on day 3. Not everyone makes that particular mistake, Maureen countered. He's from a good family. You'll never do better. The words stung because they echoed every insecurity Maureen had ever had about herself. Not pretty enough, not sophisticated enough, not worthy of the fairy tale. If that's the best I can do, she said carefully, then I'd rather be alone. Her mother left shortly after, disappointed but not surprised. Maureen had always been the stubborn one, the daughter who refused to settle. Ravel, at least, was firmly in her corner. You did the right thing, she said for the 100th time. That man is trash, and his mother is worse. I know. But Maureen couldn't stop thinking about Seojin, about the way he'd looked at her in that bar, like he saw past all her defenses to something real underneath. She tried to put him out of her mind, but it was impossible. His business card sat in her nightstand drawer, and sometimes she'd take it out and run her finger over his name, wondering what would happen if she called. But she never did. 2 weeks after the cancelled wedding, Maureen was leaving school when she noticed the black car. It was parked across the street, sleek and expensive and completely out of place in this neighborhood. She thought nothing of it until she saw the same car the next day. And the next. On the 4th day, she walked directly to the car and knocked on the window. It rolled down to reveal Seojin. Are you stalking me? She demanded. Protecting you, he corrected. From what? My brother's made some enemies. They might try to get to him through you. Maureen stared at him. That's insane. Why would anyone care about me? I'm not even marrying him anymore. Because he's been telling everyone you are. He's pretending the wedding is just postponed, not cancelled. What? Why would he do that? Seojin's jaw tightened. To save face. And because he's obsessed with controlling things he can no longer have. That's not my problem. It is if someone decides to kidnap you to send him a message. He said it so matter-of-factly that it took a moment for the words to register. Kidnap? You're joking. I don't joke about safety. Seojin opened the car door. Get in. I'll explain on the way. On the way where? Somewhere more secure than a street corner where anyone could be watching. Maureen wanted to argue, to tell him she didn't need his protection or his complications. But there was something in his eyes that made her pause. Fear. Real, genuine fear for her safety. She got in the car. They drove in silence to a parking garage, then took an elevator to what appeared to be a penthouse apartment. The view of Manhattan was breathtaking, but Maureen barely noticed. Start explaining, she said as soon as the door closed behind them. Jean poured 2 glasses of water and handed her one. My family's business isn't exactly legal. I gathered that from the whole enemies who kidnap people thing. We deal in imports. Sometimes the goods are questionable. And sometimes the people we deal with are dangerous. You're in the Mafia. That's a very Western term for it. But accurate? He nodded slowly. Accurate enough. Maureen set down her water glass before she dropped it. And Gyra? Is supposed to be taking over the business. But he's reckless, makes deals without thinking through the consequences. He's made some people very angry. And you think they'll come after me because they think I'm still engaged to him. I know they will. I've already heard rumors. Maureen sank onto the couch, her mind reeling. This is insane. This whole situation is completely insane. I know. Jean sat across from her, maintaining careful distance. I'm sorry you got dragged into this. If I'd known what Gyra was, I never would have let you date him in the first place. You didn't even know I existed until 2 weeks ago. No. But I wish I had. The words hung between them, loaded with meaning neither of them could act on. So what do I do? Maureen asked. Hire a bodyguard. Move to another city? Let me protect you. At least until Gyra makes a public announcement that the engagement is off. And when will that be? When I force him to. Jean's expression was grim. I'll handle it. Why are you doing this? You don't know me anything. He looked at her for a long moment. Because that night in the bar, you were real with me. Most people aren't. And because if something happened to you because of my family, I'd never forgive myself. Maureen knew she should say no. Letting Jean into her life was dangerous in more ways than one. But she also knew he was right about the threat. She'd seen enough crime shows to know how these things went. Okay, she said. But just until it's safe. And we keep this professional. Agreed. It was a lie, and they both knew it. Over the next 3 weeks, Jean became a constant presence in Maureen's life. He drove her to school in the morning and picked her up in the afternoon. He vetted every place she went, every person she met. It should have felt suffocating, but instead, it felt like having a partner who actually cared about her well-being. They talked during the drives, carefully avoiding anything too personal. But slowly details slipped through. She learned that he loved American jazz, that he'd wanted to be a musician before family duty called, that he read philosophy books to fall asleep. He learned that she'd grown up poor, that teaching was her way of giving back, that she'd never been outside the country but dreamed of seeing Korea. I could take you, Jean said one evening as they waited for traffic to clear. What? To Korea. I could show you Seoul, introduce you to real Korean food, take you to the temples. Jean. I know. I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. But it wasn't, and they both knew it. The line between protection and something more had been blurring for days. It was in the way he said her name, the way his hand would hover near the small of her back when guiding her through a door, the way they couldn't seem to stop finding excuses to be near each other. One night, Gyra showed up at her apartment. Maureen was alone, Jean having just left after sweeping the place for bugs. She heard the knock and checked the peephole, her stomach dropping when she saw who it was. I know you're in there, Gyra called through the door. I just want to talk. Go away. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Against her better judgment, Maureen opened the door, keeping the chain engaged. What do you want? Gyra looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair unkempt. I want you back. That's not happening. Why? Because of one mistake? Because I wasn't perfect? Because you cheated on me, lied to me, and then tried to manipulate me into thinking it was my fault for being upset. I've changed. In 3 weeks? I don't think so. Gyra's expression hardened. Is this about my brother? Has he been filling your head with lies about me? This has nothing to do with Sejin. Doesn't it? He's been following you around like a puppy. Don't think I haven't noticed. He's protecting me from your enemies. You know, the ones you created by being a terrible businessman. Gyra's hand slammed against the door, making Maureen jump. Don't talk about things you don't understand. I understand enough. Now leave, or I'm calling the police. The police? He laughed bitterly. You think they can protect you from what's coming? You think Sejin can? He's not a hero, Maureen. He's worse than me in every way that matters. Goodbye, Gyra. She closed the door and locked it, her heart pounding. Through the wood, she heard him cursing in Korean, then finally, the sound of his footsteps retreating. She called Sejin immediately. He was here, she said when he picked up. Gyra. He was at my apartment. I'm on my way. The line went dead. He arrived in under 10 minutes, which meant he must have been driving like a maniac through Manhattan traffic. He swept through the apartment, checking every room, every window, before finally turning to her. Did he threaten you? Not directly. But he was angry. He knows you've been protecting me. Good. Let him know. Sejin, he said something. About you being worse than him. What did he mean? Sejin was quiet for a long moment. I've done things, Maureen. Things I'm not proud of. The business I'm in doesn't leave room for clean hands. Have you hurt people? Yes. The simple honesty of it should have scared her. Instead, she found it oddly reassuring. At least he wasn't lying. Have you killed anyone? Would it matter if I said yes? I don't know, Maureen admitted. Maybe it should. But right now, all I know is that you've been nothing but honest and protective with me, which is more than I can say for the man I almost married. Sejin moved closer, and the air between them seemed to thicken. You shouldn't trust me, Maureen. I'm not a good man. Maybe not. But you're a better man than your brother. That's a low bar. Then prove me wrong. Tell me why you're really doing this. And don't say it's just about guilt or duty. His eyes searched hers, and she saw the war happening inside him. Finally, he said, because from the moment I saw you crying in that bar, something in me shifted. Because every time I'm near you, I forget about the darkness I live in. Because you make me want to be the man you think I am, even though I know I'll never deserve you. The confession hung between them, raw and dangerous. Sejin, Maureen breathed. I should go. But he didn't move. Neither did she. Instead, she stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. What if I don't want you to go? Then we're both making a terrible mistake. I'm tired of making good decisions. Look where they got me. His hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. If we do this, there's no going back. My family will never accept it. Gyra will make our lives hell. And you'll be tied to a world you should run from. I know. And you're willing to risk that? Instead of answering, Maureen kissed him. It was nothing like the comfort of that first night. This was fire and need and all the tension that had been building between them for weeks. Sejin's control shattered, and he pulled her closer, kissing her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Maureen said, I'm willing to risk it. God help us both, Sejin murmured, and kissed her again. They spent the night talking, kissing, making plans they both knew were probably impossible. When morning came, Sejin's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. He checked it and cursed in Korean. It's my mother. Gyra told her about us. What did he say? That I seduced you away from him. That I've been manipulating you. Sejin's jaw clenched. She wants to see both of us. Today. Do we have to go? If we don't, she'll make things worse. She has connections, Maureen. She could make your life very difficult. So they went. The Kwan mansion felt even more oppressive the second time. Yunseo sat in the same chair as before, but this time Gyra stood behind her, his expression triumphant. "So it's true," Yunseo said, looking between them. "My son's fighting over the same woman. How dramatic." "We're not fighting over anything," Seojin said coldly. "Gyra destroyed his relationship through his own actions. What happens between Maureen and me is separate." "Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like betrayal. The only one who betrayed anyone is Gyra." Gyra stepped forward. "I made one mistake. You stole my fiancé." "Your fiancé left you," Maureen interjected. "I made that choice myself. Seojin had nothing to do with it." "But he has everything to do with why you won't come back," Gyra shot back. "Admit it. You're in love with my brother." The words should have felt premature, too big for what they had. But when Maureen looked at Seojin, she realized they were true. "Yes," she said simply. "I am." Yunseo's expression turned to ice. "Then you're both fools. This family doesn't forgive disloyalty, Seojin. You know that better than anyone." "I don't care." "You should. Because I can make both your lives miserable. I can freeze your accounts, Seojin. I can have you removed from the business. And you, Miss Jonas, I can ensure you never work as a teacher again. One call to the right people about your involvement with organized crime, and your career is over." "Mother," Seojin's voice was dangerous. "Don't." "Why not? You've both shown such disregard for this family. Why should I show you any consideration?" Maureen felt her world tilting. Teaching was everything to her. Without it, who was she? But when she looked at Seojin, at the man who'd shown her what real partnership looked like, she knew her answer. "Do what you want," Maureen said. "I'm not backing down. I'm not going back to Gyra, and I'm not giving up Seojin." Yunseo's eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this." "Maybe. But at least I'll regret it on my own terms." They left the mansion together, hand in hand. In the car, Seojin was silent, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I'm sorry," he finally said. "I'm so sorry you're caught up in this." "I'm not sorry. Are you?" "No. But I hate that loving me costs you so much." "Then make it worth it." He looked at her, and something in his expression softened. "I'll spend the rest of my life trying." The next few months were a strange blend of happiness and tension. Maureen and Seojin built a life together in secret, away from his family's reach. He set her up in a new apartment with security she couldn't have afforded on a teacher's salary. She introduced him to her world, taking him to poetry readings and community events, showing him the New York his business rarely touched. But Yunseo made good on her threats. Maureen's school received an anonymous tip about her connections to organized crime. She was called into the principal's office and placed on administrative leave pending investigation. "I didn't do anything wrong," Maureen insisted. "I believe you," Principal Martinez said gently. "But the optics are bad. Until this blows over, I need you to stay home." Stay home turned into being let go. The union fought for her, but in the end, the school board decided it was too risky to keep her on staff. Maureen was devastated. Seojin found her crying in their apartment, holding a box of classroom supplies she'd had to pack up. "I'll fix this," he promised. "How? You can't undo what's been done." "No. But I can make sure she never hurts you again." Don't do something you'll regret because of me." "Everything I've done since meeting you has been because of you," Seojin said. "And I don't regret any of it." But while they were dealing with Yunseo's attacks, they didn't notice Gyra's silence. He'd stopped calling, stopped showing up, stopped making threats. Seojin should have known his brother was planning something. The attack came on a Tuesday. Maureen was grocery shopping when a van pulled up beside her. Two men grabbed her before she could scream, throwing a bag over her head and shoving her inside. She fought, landing a few good kicks that made someone curse, but there were too many of them. Within seconds, her hands were zip-tied, and the van was moving. "What do you want?" she demanded, trying to keep the fear out of her voice. "Shut up," one of the men said in accented English. They drove for what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes. When the van stopped and they pulled her out, Maureen could hear water. A pier maybe, or a dock. They dragged her into a building that smelled like rust and seawater. When they finally removed the hood, she found herself in a warehouse, tied to a chair, facing 3 men she'd never seen before. "Miss Jonas," the one in the center said. He was older, with scars on his face and cold eyes. "Do you know who I am?" "No. My name is Park Min-ho. Your boyfriend's brother owes me a considerable amount of money." "I don't know anything about that." "Perhaps not. But you're valuable nonetheless. Seo-jin Kwon is known for his attachment to you. I suspect he'll pay handsomely for your safe return." "You're wrong. He'll kill you." Park smiled. "He can try." They left her alone after that, tied to the chair in the cold warehouse. Maureen tried not to panic, tried to think. Seo-jin would find her. He had to find her. Hours passed. Her wrists ached from the zip ties, her throat was dry, and fear had settled into her bones. She thought about her students, about the life she'd lost, about whether she'd ever see Seo-jin again. Then she heard it. Gunfire. It started distant but grew closer. Shouts in Korean, more shots, the sound of breaking glass. Maureen's heart hammered as the warehouse door burst open. Seo-jin stood there, gun in hand, looking like something out of a nightmare. His suit was splattered with blood, his face a mask of cold fury. Behind him, she could see bodies on the floor. "Maureen!" His voice cracked on her name. He was across the room in seconds, cutting through her restraints with a knife. "Did they hurt you?" "No. I'm okay. We need to go. Now." He pulled her to her feet and led her through the warehouse, stepping over bodies without looking at them. Maureen tried not to look either, but she caught glimpses. Blood. So much blood. Outside, a car was waiting. Seo-jin pushed her into the back seat and climbed in after her, barking orders in Korean to the driver. "What happened?" Maureen asked as the car sped away. "Park Min-ho made a mistake. He thought I'd negotiate. Instead, I eliminated him and everyone who worked for him." "You killed them all?" "Yes." He looked at her, and she saw the monster his mother had warned her about. "And I'd do it again. I'd burn this entire city down before I let anyone hurt you." She should have been horrified. Instead, she felt safe for the first time since being grabbed. "Gyra set this up," Seo-jin continued. "He gave Park your location, your routine, everything. My own brother tried to have you killed. What are you going to do?" "What I should have done weeks ago. End this." They went straight to the Kwon mansion. Seo-jin didn't knock, he kicked the door in. Gyra and Yunseo were in the living room, both jumping to their feet as Seo-jin stormed in. "You tried to have her killed," Seo-jin said, his voice deadly calm. "I don't know what you're talking about," Gyra replied, but his eyes gave him away. "Park Min-ho. You gave him information about Maureen. You set up the kidnapping. So what if I did? You stole from me. You took everything I wanted." "I never wanted any of this." Seo-jin gestured around them. "The business, the family, any of it. I wanted to be a musician, remember? You forced me into this life. And then you have the audacity to be angry when I finally find something worth protecting? She was mine first. She was never yours. You just owned her in your mind, like you own everything else." Yunseo stepped between them. "Both of you stop this. We're family." "No," Seo-jin said. "We're not. Not anymore. I'm done. I'm leaving the business, leaving this family, leaving all of it. You can't, Yuncio said. You're the heir. You have responsibilities. Give them to Gyra. He's always wanted them anyway. He's not ready. He'll destroy everything we've built. Then maybe it deserves to be destroyed. Seojin took Maureen's hand. I'm leaving. Don't contact me. Don't follow me. If you do, if you come after her again, I won't hesitate to destroy everything you've built myself. And unlike Gyra, I actually know how. They walked out together, leaving the Kwon family in chaos. In the car, Maureen finally asked, Where are we going? Away. Anywhere you want. What about your life here? Your business? I don't care about any of it. Not anymore. But leaving wasn't as simple as they'd hoped. Word spread quickly through the Korean underworld that Seojin Kwon was out. Some saw it as weakness. Others saw opportunity. Gyra, now desperate to prove himself to their mother, made a fatal error. He approached the Chong family, rivals of the Kwons, and offered them information about Seojin's whereabouts in exchange for their support in taking over the business. The Chong family took the information. Then they took Gyra's life. The news reached Seojin 3 days later. Despite everything, despite the betrayal and the hatred, Maureen watched something in him break when he heard his brother was dead. I should feel relieved, he said, staring out at the Manhattan skyline from their temporary safe house. But all I feel is empty. He was your brother. You're allowed to grieve. I could have saved him. If I'd stayed, if I'd been stronger, if I'd... Stop. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. The funeral was small. Yuncio didn't acknowledge Seojin's presence, didn't speak to him even when they stood side by side at the grave. But as they were leaving, she pulled him aside. This is your fault, she said. He died trying to prove he was worthy of what you threw away. He died because he made a deal with the wrong people. That's not on me. Everything is on you. You abandoned this family. You abandoned your duty. I chose love over duty. I'd make the same choice again. Yuncio's face twisted with something that might have been pain. Then you're lost to me. She walked away, and Seojin let her go. 2 weeks after the funeral, Seojin disappeared. Maureen woke up one morning to find him gone. No note, no explanation, just empty space where he should have been. She called his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. She checked with his associates, but no one had seen him. 3 days passed. Then a week. Then a month. Ravel tried to comfort her. Maybe he's protecting you. Going into hiding to keep you safe. Then why not tell me? Because you would have insisted on going with him. It made sense, but it didn't make the pain any less. Maureen had lost her job, her fiancé, her sense of security, and now the one person who'd made it all worth it was gone. She tried to move on. She got a job at a community center, teaching art to kids who couldn't afford private lessons. It wasn't the same as her classroom, but it helped. She focused on rebuilding her life, on being okay with being alone. Months passed. Fall turned to winter, turned to spring. Maureen stopped checking her phone every 5 minutes, stopped expecting him to walk through the door. Then, on a Tuesday in April, Ravel called. Turn on the news. Maureen grabbed the remote. The headline made her heart stop. Korean Mafia boss found dead in harbor. The picture showed Seojin's car being pulled from the water. After, she went to the grave alone. I'm so angry at you, she whispered to the headstone. You promised me you'd make it worth it. You promised. I'm sorry. Maureen spun around. Seojin stood 20 feet away, very much alive, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. You're dead, she said stupidly. Not quite. He moved closer, and she saw he looked different. Thinner, with new scars on his hands. I needed everyone to think I was. Including me? Especially you. I needed your grief to be real, or they wouldn't have believed it. Maureen didn't know whether to kiss him or hit him. She settled for both, slapping him hard across the face before pulling him into a fierce kiss. Don't you ever do that to me again, she said against his mouth. I won't. I swear. I'm done running, done hiding. I just needed to tie up the last loose ends. What loose ends? The people who killed Gyra. The ones who were coming for us next. They're not a problem anymore. She didn't ask what that meant. She didn't want to know. So what now? She asked instead. Now we leave. For real this time. I have money hidden away, enough for us to start over anywhere in the world. Where do you want to go? Maureen thought about New York, about the life she'd built and lost here. Then she thought about the future, about the possibility of something new. Korea, she said. You promised to show me Seoul. Si-jin smiled, really smiled, for the first time since his brother's death. Korea it is. They left that night, taking nothing but each other. At the airport, Maureen turned back one last time to look at the city that had broken her and remade her. Regrets? Si-jin asked. Not a single one. On the plane, as New York disappeared below them, Si-jin took her hand. I love you. I should have said it before. I love you too. And you better not fake your death ever again. Never. From now on, we face everything together. It wasn't the fairy tale Maureen had imagined when she planned her wedding to Gyra. It was messy and complicated and built on the ashes of her old life. But as she leaned against Si-jin's shoulder, watching the sunrise through the airplane window, she realized something. This was better. Because this love was real. It was chosen, not expected. It was honest, not performance. And it was worth every sacrifice she'd made to get here. 6 months later, they were living in a small apartment in Busan, far from Seoul's underworld. Si-jin taught music lessons to local kids. Maureen volunteered at an international school. They were nobody special, just two people learning to be happy in the quiet spaces between heartbeats. One evening, as they walked along the beach, Si-jin stopped suddenly. What's wrong? Maureen asked. Nothing. Everything's right, actually. He pulled a small box from his pocket. I know we said we'd never do traditional, but I want to ask anyway. Will you marry me? For real this time, no family politics or obligations. Just us. Maureen looked at the ring, simple and perfect, nothing like the ostentatious diamond Gyra had given her. Yes, she said. 1,000 times yes. They were married on the beach at sunset, with Ravel flying in as the only witness. No family, no drama, no secrets. Just two people who'd found each other in the darkest moment, and chose to build something beautiful from the wreckage. As they danced in the sand, the waves providing music, Maureen thought about the woman who'd walked into that hotel suite all those months ago. She'd been so naive, so certain of what love should look like. Now she knew better. Love wasn't perfect. It was messy and complicated, and sometimes it cost you everything you thought you wanted. But when it was real, when it was right, it gave you back something infinitely better. A life worth living. A person worth fighting for. A future worth believing in. And as Si-jin spun her around, both of them laughing like children, Maureen knew she would choose this imperfect, complicated, beautiful love over her fairy tale every single time. Because she hadn't slept with the wrong man that night. She'd found exactly the right one. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next emotional journey. Drop a comment below telling us what you thought about Maureen and Si-jin's story. And give this video a thumbs up if you believe in second chances and love that defies all odds. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more stories that matter. Until next time, remember that sometimes the worst betrayal leads to the greatest love.